Where's the energy? Where's the energy? How y'all doing today? Y'all ready for a great conversation? All right, sounds great. Well, today we have a great conversation brought to you by Group Black. I'm gonna introduce everyone and let them come onto stage. Today our conversation will be about embracing the influence of Black culture, media, and democracy. First up, we have Travis, the CEO and co-founder of Group Black. Richelieu Dennis, co-founder and chairman of Group Black, and founder of Essence Ventures. And we have Derrick Johnson, president of NAACP, and hosted and moderated by Miss Ashley.
Hi, everyone. I am Ashley Banks, the SVP of Revenue over at Group Black. I'm so excited to be here at Inkwell Beach. We are going to have a real discussion about the critical intersection of Black culture, media, and democracy, while emphasizing the need to nurture a media landscape that champions inclusivity and equitable representation. Just to give a little bit of background, Black people make up nearly 14% of the American population, but as we know, the impact of Black culture extends well beyond that 14%. I mean, look at us at Cannes right now, today. Black culture notoriously influences all corners of society, from art to music to fashion to media. However, that influence does not translate into economic power, and we have to close that tremendous gap. Additionally, there is a strong responsibility for media to bolster the democracy by providing diverse perspectives, which is why I'm so happy to be at Group Black, because we believe that it is important to change the face of media ownership while also investing in Black and diverse-owned media. The current imbalance of the support for Black-owned media is a threat to our democracy, and it assists in the systemic silencing of diverse voices. So today we're going to talk about how we can change that. We're here today with the NAACP to discuss the ways that we can close the gap and be more purposeful about making our outsized impact materialize into real financial gain for the BIPOC community, including our media publishers and our creators. So today, we have President Derrick Johnson of the NAACP. Yes, I mean, this is amazing. The NAACP, to discuss the ways that we can close the gap and be more purposeful. And we know that they work with so many people in America today. It's the largest and oldest civil rights movement. And we're really fighting for all the rights of people in our country. And then we also have Black co-founder and chairman, Richelieu Dennis, who also serves as the founder and CEO of Essence Ventures. And of course, we have Travis Montague, my boss, and the co-founder and CEO of Group Black. So I just want to get into the first question. To each of you, who do you look to as inspiration when it comes to creating access for BIPOC people in America?
So I'll kick that off. Actually, and I'm not just saying it because he's sitting here on the stage. This man right here has been one of the most inspirational people to me in my career. And watching Rich build businesses that at the core help this community has been incredible. I mean, what he's done with Sundial and Shay, and how he put thousands of women in school in Africa. What he continues to do with the New Voices Fund, what Essence represents in the world, has been all about helping the Black community. And so Rich helped back me in my first company when I left college, right? And so, starting Group Black as a business to help drive economic inclusion for the Black community was something that was made easier by just watching great examples from Rich and learning from Rich in the process. So Rich has been a really big inspiration to me, and I don't know who you learned from, but...
No. Panel over. You can go home now. No, it's actually, Travis, for me, it's actually the inverse, right? It's also watching young Black people build things that nobody expects them to build. and deliver results that nobody expects them to deliver. And so for me, there's no greater joy than watching you guys that we've had the good fortune of being able to partner with deliver. Whether it's, and I'm looking out in the audience and I see quite a few of you guys here and you. And so I, as crazy as it may sound, I probably get the most inspiration from watching the people running the businesses that we're associated with, or just young black people running and building businesses, period. Because I believe at my core that the only way we're going to solve the issues in our communities is through ownership of equity. And the dollars that come from those activities is the ones that will change what health in our outcomes in our community is, what educational outcomes in our communities are, what social outcomes in our community are, what crime outcomes in our community are, what mental health outcomes in our community are, right? All of those things are tied to economics, right? And so, you know, my partner at Sundial would say, Emmett Dennis would say, the revolution must be financed. And so making sure that these businesses do extraordinarily well so that the capital can then go back into funding the solutions is where it's at for me. But I get my inspiration from you and Stacy and Charles and Ryan out there who I see and all the folks that are out here, Mike back there, all the folks that are out here that are really doing things that people don't expect them to do. And then lastly, you know, there's this gentleman here and the men and women like him who have put their lives on the line, put their careers on the line to make sure that we have a fair and equitable playing field for generations now, right? And the decisions, yeah. And the decisions that they have to make and the sacrifices that they make for their families in order that our communities are better places to live, you cannot put a price tag on that. So Derrick, you and all your peers, Mark, Reverend Jackson, all the people that have been out here fighting for us all these years and clearing the field for us, know that you are an inspiration, not just to me, but I'm sure to all the folks here. And then lastly, biggest inspiration for me in life is my mother. So
thank you. Let's give a hand to Rich. I want to be clear, Rich. You can tell Reverend Sharpton and Mark I'm much younger than them, so, you know, it's different.
I couldn't tell, though.
Hey, there you go. So inspiration for me is the history of success in our community. We oftentimes think that what we're doing now is something new and innovative, but if we look deep into our successful track record, much of what we're seeing we've done before, but we have not aligned the things together. Business, informing culture, advocacy, and entertainment. 4 key components for me, right? So when you think about Frederick Douglass, he was advocacy, but he also understood the importance of imagery. That's why he was the most photographed person during his lifetime, so he could project the imagery of a dignified, well-educated black man. Paul Robeson, he understood advocacy, and he was a great entertainer. He understood that the platform he stood on, he also had to educate his community about their rights and their agency. If you think about people like James Brown, he was crazy as hell, great entertainer, but he owned everything. So there's the intersecting points. I think now we are at a unique place where you see a Rich Lou who can create a successful business model, but also understand that that business model is linked to black women. And to speak to her, he needed to lean into essence, to speak to her. But in speaking to her, he also appreciated the value of entertainment with the Essence Festival. And with that, our relationship is an advocacy reality that comes out of that so we can influence the quality of life through public policy and corporate behavior. Exactly. And so for me, it's not one person or one era or one movement. It is our ability now to merge those things. Exactly. And for the NAACP, we understand that art is advocacy. How we excuse me, how we are seen on the screen is how we are treated in public policy. It's how we are treated in the streets, and that treatment is directly related to the power we bring to bear, both in votes and in money. So it's all connected to under one umbrella.
So, can
Hey, Ashley, I have a question.
yes, yes.
Is it by design that they got you on an island?
I know. I'm like, why
I'm
am
like-
I so far away from
I was
y'all?
thinking that too. I was like, is this
Did
a
Travis
stage?
do something?
I mean, I was like, am I in trouble? What's going on?
No, I was like, this stage setup is interesting.
Well, you know, if all else fails, we have wine. So I would love to expand upon what you were just talking about, because you're doing this in your daily work today. So I would love to just hear about what you feel is the responsibility of media to actually uphold our democracy.
Well, you know, that's a great question. And oftentimes that question, among others, is upside down. Media's responsibility is return value to their shareholders. It's our responsibility to hold media accountable on how they reflect us and the opportunities that are provided, both behind the scenes, in front of the camera, and in the deal flow. And so it is really important for us. I love Charles King's and Stacey King's motto. They are raising the funds to finance projects that we own. That's important. That's a part of the deal flow we had not been engaged in before. We need to understand the entertainment industry with a 360-degree view. We are cultural influencers. We can go to China, and a young man of Chinese descent can rap Wu-Tang Clan, know every lyric. Because we can influence culture. What we have not been able to do is influence media to be accountable to our needs and interests, project the right imagery. It is embarrassing, unfortunate, and sad that I can go, you name one of the 50-plus countries in Africa, and their understanding of an African American is based on the movie Boys of the Hood or some other movie.
Right?
Or our understanding of who you name a country in Africa, when they come to the States, we have a certain image of them because the media culture and entertainment culture have created these schisms among the diaspora. We have to control and hold accountable.
Of course. And I think to that point, we've been standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean, I know that I don't look like it, but I actually remember the Great Whiteout of 1999 when there were 26 shows of a full lineup that was put out into the universe without having any person of color in leading or starring roles. And the NAACP had to step in and do what you do and advocate on behalf of us and get the television networks to sign a memorandum of understanding so that we could actually hold these networks accountable.
And let me add to that. And that's on the
Yes.
backdrop of 7 years of the #1 show on broadcast, The Cosby Show, and then they did a whiteout in 1990. In the backdrop of a different world which increased enrollment in HBCUs, and then they did a whiteout. Sometimes it's not about the business, it's about control, and we need to hold them accountable so they don't control how we see each other and how individuals view us.
Yeah,
So-
but I think, sorry.
Oh, no, please.
But
please.
I think what you're nailing on is what. So this is the second year of the Inkwell Group Black Beach. I've sat on and been to many panels. I go to Davos, many panels. I go to South by, many panels. 99% of those panels are focused on solving these issues, right? Which leaves no time for us to develop and grow our minds around what the future is going to look like. So we're constantly going backwards. We win big. You think you got 7 years of the #1 show? Take it away. Let's go start over. You build a business, do great this generation, next generation, starting over. You can everywhere you go. Until we get to the place of where we're owning these businesses, we're always subjected to what somebody wants to control. And you know, there's an old African proverb, until the lion learns how to write, the hunter will always be the hero, because he's the one who writes the story about what happened during the, he doesn't talk about how his gun was so much more powerful and how there were 20 of them tracking one animal, and that never gets told, right? It's only the heroic part. So I think what I'm going to impart upon our Group Black team here for next year and for everywhere else that we go is we're actually going to focus on what is the amount of time that we're going to spend belly aching about the problems that we have, and what is the amount of time that we're going to actually spend plotting about the solutions that we're going to go execute together. Because if you stand here and you take all the people in this room and all the conversation wasn't about where we're constantly trapped, but hey, here's what we're going to do outside of this trap, I think the transformation that we drive in this marketplace, in this economy, and in this society becomes extraordinarily powerful very, very quickly. So I think the question is one that has really been sort of inside of me brewing. Like, damn, like all of these minds here, what am the stuff we're talking about, I know it, right? And I think everybody here knows it. And collectively, we've now come to know it together, right? It's been a few years, we've come to know it together. I want to now get to the future.
And I'll add one thing to that, too. And I want to go, and that was awesome, Rich. I think I want to go back to that ownership piece, right? Because what you're seeing, and you see it over and over and over again, is lack of ownership makes it very difficult to change the systems that exist today, right? And so as we at Group Black are navigating through the media industry today, there are so many inherent designs that make it really difficult for the companies that we work with to advance. And that's why you have those situations where because you don't own it, because you can't pinpoint and actually execute the changes that need to occur for advancement to proceed, we have this year over year over year over year not making progress. There shouldn't be a situation where we say 1%, 1%, 1% for 10 years, right? Like, things grow, but it just hasn't grown here, right? And so I'm really, really pushing so hard on our community to continue to think about ownership and thinking about, like, even when from a capital raise perspective, yes, raise capital, but try to grow your business so you can keep more of your ownership.
Thank you. So we know that all three of you are doing the work today. Travis, I would love for you to talk about what you're doing with Crater, just in that vein of what you were just speaking to, and how you're making a more equitable universe for diverse creators.
Yeah. So the inequities that we see in Black-owned media also exist in the creator economy, and probably even more scaled. And so we just did the Nielsen study that we announced earlier this week that showed Black creators are driving 10.5 times the media value across key categories than their counterparts. However, they get paid 35% less, right? One of the creators we work with is Kabi Lame, right? #1 most followed TikToker in the world. Not even top 10 paid, right? The #1, like bigger than everybody on the whole platform. Not even the top 10 most paid. Not even close, right? And so how does that happen, right? How do we put ourselves, how are these creators coming into a situation where they're driving the culture and the influence and building these platforms? They're the fuel, but they're not earning the appropriate share for what they're contributing. And so with Crater, the mission has been very simple. It's to drive more value for creators than ever before by putting the creators first. And it's what's really exciting to me about this opportunity is with the creator economy is that we're moving into a world where media is being more decentralized to individuals, right? These creators have more followings and audience and influence than some of the largest media companies out there. And so if we equip these creators with the tools and help them think about themselves as businesses, we could shift how the content that people are consuming at scale. If you look at the amount of content that's consumed by by individuals, 39% of all content that is consumed by individuals 18 and up is from creators. And if you look at 13 to 17, that number grows to 59%. So 59% of all the content that kids are watching today are coming from creators. And so helping, and as this is what Rich is talking about, thinking what's next, if that's where the trend is heading, how do we make sure that that area, that system, that next wave of media and content is designed with more equity than the genres before?
Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff that I want us to start focusing on as a community, right? What's next and how we get there, and how do we leverage each other to unlock the path to getting there, right? And I think, Derrick, I think the work that you guys do is going to be critical in that, because the more of this, the more of these stumbling blocks that you guys take on, right, the more time we in this world have to focus on what's next. Like if we imagine if we had a full day of panels talking about what are the different ways that we can build infrastructure to have black creators monetize at the same rate as white creators. How much more productive and how much more effective would this day have been, right? Or if we're sitting here saying, all you media companies here that are trying to break into the P&Gs and all of these places, and we're talking about all the reasons and the needs to do that, what if we sat around talking about, here are the 4 or 5 AI tools that we're going to demand that P&G invest in and gives to each one of the companies here, that they may then transform their business using those tools to be able to serve them better, right? Then we start to unlock extraordinary amounts of value and amounts of dollars, right? And so I just think like the two are not separate. We need you, and we need organizations like yours to give us the bandwidth to go do this. And then you do that, and we do this, and then we take the money that comes out of that and support your organization, which we're not doing today.
That's about all of us knowing our role. We're an advocacy organization that value the arts, because arts is advocacy. They're creators who understand the need for advocacy. And if we have that conversation where everyone knows their role and recognize we're not in competition. Our plate is too small if we're talking about competing against each other when there's a whole buffet over there that we should be eating off of. And far too often, creatives see themselves as competition. Let me get the meeting with that company. And I went up and down this strip, and I'm looking at these conglomerate operations with multiple media companies under this umbrella, get at the buffet line, eating well. And we have this small dish, and we're fighting over the crumbs that's on the dish. We all must know our role and recognize that we're not in competition with one another.
So I know that the NAACP is working out of Los Angeles on these solutions. So can you give us a little bit more detail of what you're working on today with the Bureau and how you're trying to change that for Hollywood?
So the Hollywood office now, we opened it in 2000 in the backdrop of the 1990 letter and been multiple letters. And our goal was to figure out how can we open up diversity in the entertainment industry. And some success, not where it should be. But since that time, we've repurposed the Image Awards. We're building out so it can be Image Week so that we can see ourselves in all of the lines that week, from fashion to hair to makeup. We also have a joint venture for-profit deal with CBS Studios to do content. Sheila Ducksworth, who is there. I think we sold a few projects. Hopefully the first one will be on air 2024. That's all about getting in the space of creating the content, owning the content, and driving the conversation differently than how it's driven now. It's one thing to say you all should do, it's another thing what us doing. Robin Harris is there. We're opening up a podcasting studio and a screen. So those creators who are doing short form, they have a place to come to do the creation, because that studio will be open, I think, September, Robin, or soon? August. right? So, those are some of the things that we are venturing into, but staying true to our mission. We're an advocacy organization to influence the formation of public and corporate policy.
Absolutely, and it mirrors and parallels really well with what Rich is doing over with the New Voices Fund. I would love to hear about how your organization is working to close the gap of access, but also providing visibility for diverse creators and fueling BIPOC-owned media.
I mean, I think, our sort of, and this is a perfect example of how these different roles can tie in together to build much, much greater things. So we're now on Fund 3, which is approaching $400 million. So by the time that is done, we would have deployed somewhere north of $500 million to Black entrepreneurs over the past 5 years in this
I know.
market.
Can we pause and just clap for that?
And out of which has already come almost 40 Black millionaires over that period of time. The objective is to make sure that you see the scale of dollars, but you build the infrastructure to support those entrepreneurs, because we oftentimes think of it as the problem being the capital. And you may or may not like hearing this, the problem is not the capital. Many times when we get the capital, we're still stuck and we don't get the value out of that capital that we should, because we don't have the infrastructure to support us, we don't have the ecosystems to support us, we don't have the access to markets, to consumers, to buyers. So if you think about what's happening here, and everybody comes in and get really excited because you can walk down the street and you can run into any buyer from any company on any day. It's possible here, right? That's not access, that's happenstance, right? Access is getting into the check signing process here, where when you come here, it's a matter of now we're signing the deal. We're closing the deal. It's not, I meet you, I give you my business card and hope you call. Or you meet me, you tell me how great I am, and we did a project together. It was a $1 million project. You tell me how great it was. You arrange for me to be on a stage. We talk about that, and then that's it, right? So that $1 million project doesn't turn into 10, doesn't turn into 20, doesn't turn into 100. It's $1 million, but now you can parade me around the country and say how great you are because of what you did, right? So, my uncle always used to tell me, he said, you got to decide if you want to be a poor millionaire or a rich millionaire. $1 million projects, poor millionaire. 10, 20, $50 million projects a year, rich millionaire. I'd much rather be that. So we want to use our capital and use our expertise and our access to create those types of opportunities and create those types of environments. You may say, well, look at this place, right? Inkwell Beach, powered by Group Black. That's Group Black using its capital to provide not just these forums, but meeting rooms, set appointments, drive meetings, hold people accountable, right? So those are the things that's what we try to do with our capital, is more than just say, hey, you think you're going to build this business, you need a $2 million round, you need $500K from us, here's 500. It's, for us, the engagement starts before we actually make the investment. We'll probably take a year, 2 years getting to know a business and a founder before we make the investment. And then when we make the investment, it's a matter of opening up everything that we have access to in order to help you scale and win. And so that's why I'm very concerned about this conversation not being about what the future holds, but being about the challenges that we're facing today. Because those challenges are going to get solved over time or not. You still got to eat tomorrow. You still got to feed your kids tomorrow. We got to get down to the business of business here, right? Not down to reassessing all the issues that we've had, but we can't forget those issues, and that's why it's so important that. How many people here contributed to the NAACP this year? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. There's about 100 people here. 12 people here contributed. We need the rest of y'all to write a check. Because then he can go do the work that we need him to do, and we can then go focus on the work that we need to do. All right? So get your checkbooks out. Derrick, somebody here to take the money?
You counted 12 people, 4 work for the NAACP, 1 is on the board, so thank you all.
So you take those out, right? But we can't expect, so that's the other thing, right? That's the other thing, right? We can't expect our organizations to support us when somebody else is funding it. Because then, who gets to make that decision?
What's interesting, we are funded primarily by working class black people. The number one revenue streams are people who work every day. They're janitors, they're teachers. High wealth blacks, they abandon NAACP until there's a problem, then they come back.
Until they have a problem.
So they have a problem.
That they need you to solve.
And it blows my mind because the lunch lady who followed me from middle school all the way through law school, I thought she was the same person, although she looked different. She always gave me the extra ice cream sandwich. She gave me an extra slice of pizza. She let me eat although the cafeteria was closed. They're rooting for us. They want us to be successful. My concern, the reason why I do this is because I don't want to abandon them. They live the life they live to give us an opportunity. It's our responsibility to further their dreams and be what they hope we could be. But the sad part of it is that lunch lady who's living off of $9 an hour is who support us, while individuals who are doing well here in Cass, they don't support the very institutions that created the opportunity for us to be here. That's a sad state of our reality.
Well, y'all gonna start changing that.
Yeah. I was just about to say, so please go out and make your donations to the NAACP. And there's something that you just mentioned. There's so much revenue. There are billions of dollars moving right here in Cannes. And we really need to be part of that check signing, whether it's through advocacy groups, whether it's through supporting BIPOC media. So I would love to hear from y'all. What are the ways that brands can really show up and support us? What are the ways that they can truly make impact for BIPOC creators and media?
So, you know what I'm going to say?
I mean, yes, and I love your answer because that directly feeds my family, so please.
So we have to invest, right? We have to invest. And, you know, I have these conversations. I mean, this is what I spend most of my days doing, having conversations with brands, flying all around the world country to really help them understand the importance of investing in this community. And one of the things that I also have to impress upon brands is they're like, yes, we're advertising to the black community. Well, when you're advertising to the black community, you're just trying to get dollars out of the community, right? But you're not reinvesting in the community, right? And so you have to really focus on investing with intentionality because it fuels everything. Media ad dollars are is the fuel that drives the media that's out there today, right? And so literally the dollars that are going into, the way they spend their dollars is what's driving the narratives that are out in the world and the perceptions and the stereotypes and all those things. If we stopped funding sports, if advertisers and sponsors stopped funding sports wouldn't be as big of a business as it is today, right? So if advertisers fund and support and invest in black-owned media businesses, you'll have a lot more of it. You'll have real accurate portrayals of the community in all of its different ways. Instead of a very monolithic way of looking at the Black community. And so it's really important, not just because it's the right thing to do, but it's also what is driving the whole conversation economically.
Rich, Derrick, would you like to?
No, I love your comment. Advertising to the Black community is about extraction, but advertising with the Black community is about empowering. And I think that's all should be said. Because at this conference, we need to be clear that it's the images that's being projected, but it's the investment that's being made. And that investment should not be a one-street transaction. It should be an empowering reality. 1.2 billion Africans on the continent, the fastest growing continent on the globe. The strongest Black economy is the U.S., 7th in terms of GDP. The largest African diaspora, Brazil. Afro-Brits are gaining strength every day. We must demand more. And demanding more is more than the pictures on the commercials, it's also the investment in the agencies that we own and the agencies we represent.
I mean, I don't know if we have any other questions after that. So the charge is to make sure that you're supporting our organizations that are supporting our community. You're supporting Black-owned media that supports our community so that we can continue to impact culture, but also get paid and impact the GDP. Thanks, everyone. Oh. Do we want to do questions?
Yeah, I think we have a question.
Perfect.
Thank you. So first I have a question for Travis in terms of, action items. Given y'all are here in force and this is like a powerful group with Group Black and others here, when you gave the example of the TikTok influencer, #1 TikTok influencer who is like not in the top 10 being paid, and TikTok is here, in terms of advocating for this particular individual, have y'all had that conversation with the TikTok since they have their, senior management here in terms of advocating for this individual? So that's my first question. I have one that's a comment.
Yeah. So we do. So we spend a lot of time. The good thing is that we have a lot of information about what people spend, right, and in different ways. And so I think one of the biggest things that have occurred is the reason why you see these the pay gaps is lack of transparency, right? And because a lot of these creators have come into this, they just started creating something in their kitchen and now they have a business all of a sudden and they're doing stuff. They don't know the right number to ask, right? And so when you don't know the right number to ask, you don't want to offend. Right? And so oftentimes you ask for less. And so one of the things that when we work with brands, we make sure that the individual, whether it's a Black-owned media company or an individual creator, we're advocating for the appropriate amount of compensation for the value that they're delivering, right? And so that's a big part of it. But also there's just the education piece on the creator side as well, helping them understand what is how does this work, right, in a unique way, and making sure that the compensation that they're getting is appropriate.
I think the other thing is building a different type of business model. As many of you in here are business owners, building a different type of business model that approaches the creators differently, or the people that you're trying to do business with differently. Because, from my purview, I get to see a lot. I get to see a lot of different businesses in a lot of different arenas. And the ones that we tend to invest in are the ones who are thinking about solving the problem. Let me rephrase that. Not solving the problem, but building a business similarly. The ones that we tend to invest in are the ones who are solving a problem differently. So many of the people that build businesses come from a similar business. I was at an agency. I picked up all these skills. They took my talent. I don't feel like I got paid enough, or I don't feel like I was going any further in the agency, or there's a big market here that they're missing. You see something different, and you go outside and you set up shop. Oftentimes, they set up the same shop, right? So it's all the things that I learned how to do over here, I'm doing it over here, forgetting what the experience was for them when they were over here. So now you go build a new business on an old model that treats people the same way, all right? You see it in the record industry, you see it in the entertainment industry, you see it in the sports industry, you see it in the media industry, you see it everywhere, right? And so to really solve these problems, right, I think we need to be thinking about the businesses that we're building differently, right? The models need to be different. The way you compensate them need to be different. For example, what you're doing at Group Black and Crater with Kavi is a very different model than what he would have to do if he were working with YouTube or working with TikTok. And that's the other thing is, we can't be afraid to kick these guys' ass. Like, YouTube started somewhere. It wasn't always this monster, right? TikTok started somewhere. Hell, TikTok was a failing business when it was Musical.ly.
Correct.
Right? Like, all of these things start somewhere. You're the place that it starts. So start, and each one of those businesses did something different than what was done before, and different from what the founders that came from other organizations were doing. So I think thinking about how you solve the problems differently, executing different business models around the solutions is also a way that you start to address some of these things, and don't be afraid to take on the big guys.
Is the panel you said we need to have next, but also studying successful models that we underappreciate. Master P made more money than all the rappers because he owned, and he did it differently. Ray Charles refused to give up his masters, so he died very rich as opposed to being poor. We could go on and on. Rudy Ray Moore, as crazy as those movies he made, Dolomite he made, he bought out the theaters and realized there was a different business model where he was less dependent on external because he can build it. Tyler Perry bought out theaters for plays on the children's circuit, and now he built his own studio. Yep. Ludacris was a rapper who got a good lawyer who signed a franchise deal, so he makes more money from the Fast and the Furious franchise than he do when he perform on stage. All of which were different business models. He started in a storefront in New Orleans selling stuff out of a storefront. Now he owned the festival that he started off selling the stuff at. Doing it differently because status quo is not friendly to us. What we see as a problem, others see as a solution. So we have to flip it on the head and come up with our solutions, and it may be a problem for someone else, but at least we will own it.
Yep. And Derrick, I did say I had two things, so thank you for indulging me. One, thank you for educating me, certainly, in terms of where the primary dollars supporting the NAACP are coming from. But I thought that was so powerful in terms of it being powered by the working class, community. And in that, I see there's a lot of power because those people are members of the AFL-CIO in terms of all the unions that these folks, from the janitors all the way through, in terms of leveraging. I mean, I think that's one of the NAACP's superpowers that, maybe you need to lean on in terms of, continuing to not only raise money, but ensuring that there's always a seat at the table for, the mission-driven work that you're leading. And thank you for taking this on, because it takes a special person to trade off, corporate opportunities versus sort of doing the work that you're doing, leading, a critical not-for-profit environment. Thank you.
Excuse me. Yeah. My name is Michael Courcil. I'm the CEO of News TV and also we have a production company, Agora Film Invest. I have a little question. You talk about Group Black in US, and you see it's the first black continent for business. But I want to know, have you have some project to the first black continent, Africa? Do you think Group Black have something to do on this continent and for the diaspora African?
I'm actually curious what Rich will say first, and then I'll go.
Well, I mean, you're asking each of us what we're doing.
No, it will Group Black be in Africa? Will we bring
Group Black has to go to Africa. I mean, there's just we have to go to Africa. I mean, I think, you know, and Derrick sort of touched on this. I'll sort of add my take on it. I think that the interruption of the African civilization has led to things that we don't calculate on an everyday basis. If you think about the African economy or the black economy, if you think about the black economy in the US, the black economy in Latin America, the black economy in Europe, black economy in the Caribbean, black economy in Africa. If you put all of those economies together, we're the second largest economy on the planet, right? But we've been interrupted and we've been dispersed, right? It's number one. Then you take the impact of colonialism and the extraction of our resources and our brain power into other parts of the world, right? Which is not even calculated in that, right? Then you take the impact that these random borders set up to facilitate the ownership of the colonial powers of the region. Then you have multiple, not just small economies because of these borders, operating on different currencies, speaking different languages that are not native to the people that come from those lands, but that are imposed upon them by the colonizers. Then you come here, and we can get in that we know, right? Like all of the impact here. So I often say, you know, the job that's been done on us is so thorough that black people in America don't understand the impact of colonialism, and black people in Africa don't understand the impact of slavery. And what they don't realize is that it's the same impact, right? The very, very same impact. So what we have to do is to start thinking about how we bring those. We're not going to change the borders overnight, right? We're not going to change the languages overnight. We're not going to do those things. But what we can do is leverage technology to connect economies, right? And start to trade and do business with each other. Therefore, Group Black must be not just in Africa, but must be a global business, right? Our fund, New Voices Fund, has now in the past year invested almost $50 million in African businesses. So we're not just investing here, we're also investing in Kenya and Ghana and, you know, South and right in different places. So we must all be thinking globally, and we must all be thinking about the commonalities of our people as consumers globally, so that we're able to reach them. So to answer your question, yes, we absolutely must be there, and everybody here must be thinking about being there.
That's a Professor Rich special.
Yes, my question is to all of you as panelists, to share your thoughts about DEI initiatives. We hear, you know, anybody who's on LinkedIn sees a lot of black color.
I can't, could you put it up to your, I can't hear.
Yeah, stop, sorry. So there were a lot of black and people of color who are appointed to DEI positions, but, you know, I feel as though it's very symbolic. So I want to hear your thoughts about that, because it seems that we're really not penetrating and reaching the numbers. and yet everyone's creating all these positions without actually making a difference within their organizations. Thoughts?
I was trying not to go first. I think much of the conversation around DE&I is circular. It is a distraction. It is a manufactured something that is going to change its name in 5 years. Just 5 years ago was another name, 5 years before that, then we called it affirmative action. At the end of the day, companies must decide if they are really going to grow markets. And to grow markets, you have to go black and brown. And to do so, you have to have black and brown people around the table making decisions, because if you don't, you're going to have disruption in your product because you're going to make a mistake. And so all of these conversations around the new buzzword now, is there real commitment to ensure you are penetrating new markets by being inclusive? And are you going to be strategically inclusive by having people from those communities at the decision-making table so you can penetrate those markets? Because when you have an exclusive table, you lose market share and you're going to stump your toe, then I'm going to come see you. But that's how the process goes. So is D&I, it probably was created in somebody's desk at McKinsey, or you named the strategy group. 5 years from now, it's going to be a new buzzword, new buzz phrase. It is all circular. It's a circular conversation. You don't think you're going to come to France and have a new market if you don't have people from France at the table helping you decide how you're going to do it. That's the same reality. Our economy in the U.S. is larger than Canada. Either you want to tap into that economy in a very substantive way, or you want to play around the fringes. And that's the real conversation.
Yeah. And the other way to deal with that is just own your own shit. Right, that's what I did. Worked out for me. That's the other way to address it.
And I'll add one thing too. And one of the things, this is a big part of the work that we do at Group Black. One of the things that we're impressing upon the industry is, like, this is not just a nice thing to do. Economic inclusion as a model is the biggest business opportunity today, right? They're saturated they're over-indexed and oversaturated in all of the other categories that they've been invested in for decades. Once corporations understand that black and brown people is a massive business opportunity, they're going to, this is how the system in the capitalist system, this is how it starts to correct itself, right? When there's money to be made, then they're going to have to do exactly what Derrick was talking about, which is figure out how to authentically tap into these communities and opportunity. One, it's the fastest growing community overall, and the spending power of the community is increasing as well at the same time. So that's growth. And so the hope is, and sometimes it's just really sitting them down. It's like, it's obvious, but sometimes you got to sit down and tell people, like, more money, more people. That's where you go, right? And so that is been a key part in how we change the infrastructure of what the industry looks like for the long term.
Yeah, there used to be this restaurant chain that was the fastest growing in the 80s and 90s. That's a shell of itself now. It's called Denny's. And when we got tired of the treatment at Denny's, we quit going. Denny's shrunk. It's a fraction of the size it used to be. That's what we're going to have to do more of.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for your questions. We'll see you out there.
Thank you.